Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. In particular, I'd like to talk about how I have started to code the actions of companions. So as you can see here, we have a combat with a single enemy who has moved towards us, moved to distance 3, and it's the companion's turn. They've chosen the attack pistol whip. This makes sense because at the moment I've set it up so that the player character and any companions have pistols. So pistol whip is an attack that should be open to the companion. And then it says, since there is no enemy in range, companion 1 decides to move. That also makes sense because pistol whip has a range of up to 1 distance band, and this enemy is at distance 3. So they should indeed be unable to attack. So let's have a look at the code that allows that to happen. It's very similar to the code for enemies attacking because they do basically the same thing. They choose a random attack and then they see if there's anyone in range, and then if there is, they will make that attack, and if not, they will move. It's different because, of course, the details that we need are in different stored in different variables. So everything we're going to look at today is in the passage companion. There are no new passages with any content. There is a new empty passage, companion target, which is going to be one of the places where the code might go if, in this case, if there's someone within range, we'll go to companion target. Otherwise, we'll go to another one where the companion will move. But there's nothing in there, so of course we won't be looking at it today. And there are no new variables either. All right, so here we are. The first thing we need to do is see if the companion is prone. And if they are, their action is to stand up. So that's the same as for the enemies and for the player character. And if they do stand up, we go to next action. Okay, pretty straightforward. Otherwise, as the comment says, we find the distance to the closest enemy and we store that in X. We start with X equal to 100, just because that's a number that's definitely bigger than any real range is going to be. We have a for loop. It goes from 1 to enemy underscore max, which is the maximum number of enemies that you can face in a single combat, currently set to 15. For each of those, we check if that enemy has at least 1 hit point, which is our way of checking that that is an enemy that is involved in the combat to start with and is still alive. Obviously, we don't want to look at the distances or we don't want to look at where any dead companions are. That doesn't matter, and we don't want to look at where any we don't want to look at any slots that aren't being used in the current combat. So if they've got at least 1 hit point, meaning that's a real enemy, then we do this. Now this could have been done in 1 line, but I did it in 2 because I think it makes it easier to explain. We set y equal to math.abs with a capital M, math.abs, that is the absolute value of whatever's in the brackets. And that means that if it's a negative, we multiply it by -1. So if we end up with 5, for example, we keep it as it is. But if we end up with -5, we multiply it by -1 to make it 5. And it's the difference between com ini who, or ini underscore who 3 and NME Z3. So the current companion, where are they? Which is what we keep in slot 3. And the current enemy that we're looking at, where are they? And how far apart are they? Then we set X equal to math.min. So the smaller or smallest of whatever's going to be in these brackets. In this case, we've got 2 terms, but you can have 3 or 4 or any number as long as they're all separated by commas. And in this case, the 2 terms are X and y. So if x is greater than if x is greater than y, then we reduce x to y. And in fact, we always will do that in at the first enemy that we look at, because x will start at 100, and this, once we calculate it, will always be less than 100. So we'll always end up reducing it the first time. Then we choose an attack at random. So this is quite a long bit of code. This is probably another one where I could have broken it up into more than one line, but so let me show you, let me sort of make it easier to follow by breaking it up. We have set z equals WEA underscore OVR, that stands for weapon overview. Weapon INI underscore who, double bracket 0. So what's happening there? Well, okay, I'll put these on two separate lines. We look at $weapon, square bracket $INI underscore who, end bracket. So INI underscore who is just the currently acting character, who in this case is a companion. If we've ended up here, it's a companion. Weapon is the array that keeps track of what weapon each character has. And as I said before, in this case, it'll be 7, which is the value of a pistol. As we add more code, we'll have to have the opportunity to have different weapons and exchange weapons and so on. But at the moment, it's always a pistol, so it's always going to be 7. So that means we're going to be looking at WEA underscore OVR 70. So what will we find in WEA underscore OVR 70? We will find the name of the weapon, in this case pistol. So we know that Z is going to be a text. We're not going to get a number out of this. We're going to get a text, a string of text, and it's going to be the text pistol plus. Now this is a bit difficult to see, but what this is a space. It's basically quote space end quote. Although quotes and end quotes are the same character, but I call them quotes and end quotes. It's just the same, the quote character. So we're going to have something like, up to this point here, we're going to have text that is something like pistol space, and then we're going to have this thing, a random number between 1 and something. And that something is WEA underscore OVR weapon $INI underscore who 2. So what does that mean? Well, that means, again, we look at weapon INI who, so that's going to be 7. So we're going to be looking at something like WEA underscore OVR 72. Well, what do we find in that particular slot? Well, what we'll find is the number of attacks that a particular weapon has. So in slot, let's say we're looking at pistol. In slot 2, that is slot 0, that is slot 1, and that is slot 2. So this will end up giving us this last bit of code here. Oh, actually, yeah, this last bit of code here will end up giving us random 1, 2. It just looks up how many attacks does a pistol have. Well, it has 2. Okay, we need to generate a random number between 1 and 2 inclusive. In other words, just choose one of the attacks at random. And so we will end up with some text that's something like that. Pistol space 1 or pistol space 2. And we put that in Z. And the reason we put that in Z, well, first we say, the reason we put that in Z is because when we go to WEA underscore ATT, which is the details of the different attacks, we index that not with numbers, but with text. and the text is in that form. So it's pistol space 1, pistol space 2, machine gun space 1, or whatever it might be. And so what we're doing there is we're choosing a random slot in WEA_ATT that is relevant to the weapon that we're using. And then we tell the player, companion, let's say 2 or 1, chooses the attack, and then we have WEA_ATT Z0. Well, Z is something like pistol 1. Let's have a look at what slot 0 of that would be. Well, that would be shoot or pistol whip. And if we're using different weapons, well, we'll have different choices. Hit and slash, for example, and so on. Okay, now we look at the range of that attack and we compare that to the distance to the nearest enemy. Well, the distance to the nearest enemy is X. We spent all this code finding that out. And then we say if X is less than or equal to WEA_ATT Z1 times 2 plus 1. Well, let's have a look at WEA_ATT something 1. Well, that's just the range. And it's in that form 0 for close, 1 for mid, and 2 for far. But we have to times 2 and add 1 because 0 doesn't mean a range of only 0 range bands. It actually means up to 1. Mid is up to 3 and far is up to 5. So to get from 0, 1, 2 to 1, 3, 5, we multiply by 2 and add 1. So if the weapon, if the distance to the nearest enemy is less than or equal to the range of the attack that we've chosen, then we're going to go to companion target, which is where we're going to choose a target for this companion's attack. Or, since there is no enemy in range, companion 1 or 2 decides to move. So they've tried, they think, oh, I don't want a pistol whip. Well, there's no enemy I can pistol whip that's within range, so therefore I'm going to move presumably closer, although they may move further away if they're, if random chance decides that they're scared and so on. But at the moment, there's only a message, but of course, we need to, oh, goodness me, sorry, there we go. At the moment, there's only a message, but of course, we need to have a similar include and a similar new passage deciding how and where the companion moves. So that is what we've done so far. The next things we're going to do will probably be more code for the companion's attack, although I might also do, I've just got a message from the viewer who this is being done for, and they've given me some information about how they want critical misses or long failures to go for the player character or the or companion. So I might code that as well. I'll have to code it at some stage, of course. But for now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.